So the value of the property will be dictated based on the future cash flow that the property will generate. And then you will divide it by the discount rate to get the present value of cash flow. And to find the terminal value of the property, you'll multiply it by exit multiple. Typically, the exit multiple is the terminal cap rate. What's up, everyone? Sorry I haven't posted a video in a while. My apologies. I just got caught up with work and some other things in the sideline. But I will promise to get back on uploading regularly as much as possible. In this video, we're going to be talking about how to value a property, more particularly a residential property. However, these three principles can apply to any property, really. But for my sake, I typically buy single family homes or small multifamily properties in my investment portfolio. So without further ado, let's get into it. Number one, and probably the most popular approach to valuing a property is using the comparables approach. You'll find that 99.99% of appraisers, when they are valuing a residential property, they will more than likely end up using the comparables approach to find the value of the property. Basically, what this is on a high level is it takes your subject property, so the property that you want to buy, and compares it to other properties around the area of your subject property that have sold recently. And based on those prices that those houses sold for around the area, that will basically derive the price of your property, right? So if all these houses around the area comparable to your property sold for $1,000, the value of your property is going to be $1,000. That's just on a high level, but digging into it, there are numerous adjustments that appraisers make when using the comparables approach. So let's take an example, right? So there's a subject property, and it's the month of February, and we're looking to buy it. It's February right now. And we look at houses that sold around near the area of our subject property, right? And we find three comparables, three houses that will help us find the value of what our house is worth, right? So there's comparable A, B, and C. Some things that the appraiser looks at is when were these properties sold, right? So A sold in January, B sold in December, C sold in the month of December. So all relatively around the same period of February where we hope to buy the subject property. So it's relatively comparable in terms of timeline, right? Typically, appraisers don't look at properties that are greater than 6 months sold. Right now, if it's December, they won't look at a property that sold in March, right? That's way too far away. It's not really comparable in terms of time. Anyways, right, so they look at the date sold, and then they look at the kilometers away that these properties are from the subject property. So A is 1 kilometer away, B and C are 2 kilometers away. Typically, and this is relatively intuitive, the further the subject property is away from these comparable properties, the less comparable they'll become, right? Because a house 4 kilometers away from my house might be way closer to a school district, it might be closer to entertainment, it might be closer to transportation and other things. So the value of those houses could be much higher than the value of my houses. So kilometers away from the subject property matters a lot as well. They also look at the square feet of livable area in the properties, right? So let's say the subject property has 100 square feet of livable area. A has 110, B has 90, C has 95. So this is not necessarily apples to apples, just because the subject property has 100 and A, B, and C, the other comparable properties, have different square feet of living area. So how do we make this comparable? Using the expertise, the appraiser understands the market and what adds value to a particular house. So they say that, hey, for every square feet of additional area, that adds an extra $10 to the value of the house, right? To make comparable A more comparable to the subject property, they'll say that A has 10 square feet more livable area than the subject property. Every square feet of livable area adds $10 to the house. So let's say A sold for $1,000, right? So 10 square feet of livable area times $10 per square feet is going to be $100. So now the value of the property for A is actually sold for $1,000, subtracted by $100 is going to be $900. So the value of A is actually $900, and the square feet of livable area is going to be 100 now. So it's comparable to the subject property. Same thing with B. So B has 90 square feet, which is 10 square feet less than the subject property, which has 100 square feet. So let's say B also sold for $1,000 as well. To turn this square feet to 100 and make it comparable with the subject property, every additional square feet is going to add $10 in value. So 10 times 10 equals 100. So B is going to be worth 1,100 now, right? And that makes it more comparable to the subject property. And then lastly, C is 95 square feet. The subject property is 100 square feet. So they will adjust accordingly as well, right? And they will also look at the washroom. So they all have 2 washrooms. They'll look at parking. So all of them don't have parking except for B. B has parking. And let's say parking adds $1,000 extra to the value of the home. So they'll go to property B and they will subtract $1,000 from the sale price to basically make it comparable to the subject property. So this is now going to be a no. Sorry, the marker is running out of ink. And they will look at the basement, whether it's complete or not. So A has a complete basement, the rest don't have a complete basement. So they'll go to A and subtract the cost, or sorry, the value that a complete basement adds to a house. And that will make it comparable to the subject property. This is just a very high level. Things obviously are more complex than this. For example, if A has massive bedrooms, but the subject property just has 3 10 by 10 bedrooms, then the appraiser obviously has to use his judgment to decrease the value of A to make it comparable to the subject property, which has smaller bedrooms, but A has very big bedrooms. So they'll do some gymnastics with their math, and they will basically adjust all of the values of A, B, and C, and then come up, let's say with A is worth $100, B is worth $100, and C is worth $110. The subject value will be within the range of $100 to $110. That's essentially the comparables approach. Second most popular way to value a property is the income approach. Specifically for investment properties, you'll find that a lot of appraisers balance both the comparable and the income approach to come up with their final appraisal amount. There's 2 methods, which is first one being direct capitalization. Please watch my cap rate video if you haven't already. It will give you an in-detail explanation on how to calculate the value of a house using the direct capitalization approach. To revise, the cap rate formula is the NOI divided by the market value of the house, right? So if we know what the NOI of the property is, the NOI is just basically all of the revenues minus all of the expenses of the rental property, not including mortgage payments, right? And we know that the cap rate around the area is, let's say, 5%. We can work backwards to calculate the market value. So the direct capitalization approach, basically you can be able to find the value of the house by taking your NOI and dividing it by the cap rate. So this is relatively simple way to evaluate a property as well. More complex income approach valuation is the yield capitalization method. And you'll find that many appraisers don't really look at this method at all. So you don't really have to understand it if you don't want to. It's relatively complex, and not even many appraisers understand this approach. For those of you guys in business or in finance, essentially what this is it's going to be a discounted cash flow or a DCF analysis. So the value of the property will be dictated based on the future cash flow that the property will generate. And then you will divide it by the discount rate to get the present value of cash flow. And to find the terminal value of the property, you'll multiply it by exit multiple. Typically the exit multiple is the terminal cap rate. Or you will assume perpetual growth using the Gordon growth method. So you assume perpetual growth on the NOI, and then you discount that back to find basically the value of the property. A lot of mumbo jumbo. Don't worry guys, you don't need to really understand this. I actually never found an appraiser that really uses this approach, or most appraisers don't really understand this approach to the fullest. I would focus your attention on understanding the direct capitalization approach. The last way to calculate a property is using the cost approach. Relatively simple. Essentially what this is basically the value of the land plus the cost it will take to basically rebuild your property if it was completely demolished. So the value of the land plus the cost it will take to build it back up. Let's run through a quick example. Typically what appraisers will do is, let's say that the house that you want to value is 100 square feet in livable area, and it costs $10 to rebuild every square feet of that house, right? That's using the appraiser's expertise and understanding of how much it costs to build up a house and things of that nature. Or maybe they pull that out their ass, like who knows. Anyways, let's say the house is 100 square feet, right? 100 square feet. And it costs $10 to build up every square feet of the house again. So the value of the house is going to be 100 times 10, which is just going to be $1,000. The value of the house is going to be $1,000, right? But that's not it. It's 2019 now, right? And the house was built in the 1950s. So obviously the house has depreciated over time in terms of its useful life. The house is not going to last forever, right? So it's obviously depreciated in how long the useful life of that house is going to be. And let's say that the appraiser assumes that the house has used up 40% of its useful life, right? So right now the house is valued at $1,000, and then you subtract, it depreciated by 40%. So 40% of $1,000 is going to be $400. So now the actual value of the house is going to be $600. The value of the house is $600 once you strip out depreciation. But then there's also improvements that you made to the house right now. So let's say that you built like a stunner deck or a stunner porch in the house that wasn't there before. You dug up and built a brand new swimming pool, security system all around the house. That's obviously improvements made to the house that will cost a little bit of extra to rebuild back up. So let's say that the appraiser says like, hey, you have a couple improvements, and the improvements are going to be $100 to, I guess, rebuild or replace. So now the value of your house is going to be $600 plus $100. So the value of your house is now $700. And then obviously your house is built on land, and the land has value as well, right? Your lot size has value. So the appraiser will say, hey, the land that the house is built on is worth $1,000. $1,000. So the total value of your house using the cost approach is going to be $1,700. And again, that was just by taking the square feet of livable area in the house, multiplying by the cost it takes to rebuild that, subtracted by the depreciation in addition to the improvements, and then adding the value of the land that the house is built on. And that will give you basically the cost to repair the house or replace the house. Hope you guys understand how to value a property more using the three approaches: the comparables approach, the income approach, and the cost approach on how to appraise a house, right? You'll find that a lot of time appraisers use either two, sometimes all three methods to value a house. With residential properties, you'll find that they'll use like a mix of these methods to value the house or appraise the house, but they'll put a lot of emphasis on the comparables approach more than the other approaches. However, this is just an introduction video for you guys to understand how to value or appraise a property, what your appraiser does throughout the appraisal process. And hopefully in a future video, I'm actually looking to refinance one of our properties. So I'm creating an appraisal package, and I'll be sharing that in a future video with you guys to kind of show you guys what I do to prepare for the appraisal, to ensure that I get the maximum value or the maximum appraisal as possible. When I refinance, I can pull out most of the cash out from my property or my investment. Thank you guys so much for watching the video, guys. If you like the video, please like the video. Comment down below if you have any questions or you just want to engage. Follow me on Instagram at AustinYay6, right? Or visit me on my website, austinyay.com, if you want to learn more about my journey towards financial independence or financial freedom. You'll also be able to find free content or free Excel models there. Excel models that I personally built and use on a day-to-day basis. Thanks so much, guys, for watching the video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And until then, I'll see you guys next time. Peace.